On Wednesdays at 7, sharp as can be, blue gals calling, come knit with me.
Hi, everybody. Happy second sock week. We're right in smack dab in the middle of second sock week. Finish the second sock in a pair. And I am halfway done with the second sock. Here's the first sock for the month of August. Lots of purple in there. This yarn is Monet's Garden from Knitted Wit, which is discontinued, sorry. And I think I'm about 6 rows from finishing the instep. 6 rounds. Oh, Bosco is having fun. I'm so glad. So this will get done hopefully by Friday. And then I'll have a pair of socks to send to my friend in Boston, who is a deserving recipient every year of a pair of socks. And so I had a request from a YouTube commenter who heard me mention on this podcast that I knit left to right, and I'm left-handed, and I knit what most people call left-handed Continental style knitting. And this YouTube commenter asked me to demonstrate that. Well, that forced me to get off my duff and actually buy a rig so I could put my phone up over my workspace and record my hands knitting. And so I did that today. It was a first effort. I think it looks okay. I'm going to show it to you now, and I hope you enjoy it. And then I'll be back to read at the end of the podcast. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I knit left-handed, left to right. And this technique is called left-handed continental knitting. I hold the working needle in my left hand, the yarn in my right hand, and the knitting in my right hand. And I keep tension with my right index finger. For knitting, I stick the needle in the first stitch, pass the needle over the working yarn, and move the needle from back to front. That first stitch is always a little tricky. Back to front. So try to get a little rhythm here. I'm going to do this several times so you'll be able to see it. But that is a row left to right of knitting. For purling, I'm going to have the yarn in front, and this requires a little more working with the moving the fingers than knitting does. Your wrists do not move at all in this technique. So needle goes in the top of the stitch toward the front of the, I'm going to call this the working needle. The working needle goes to the front. The yarn goes up and over that needle and back down. Let me do that again. Up and over. And then the needle goes from back to front, front to back, excuse me. So I'll do that again. That first stitch is always tricky. It is a process of moving the needle from front to back. I know I'm going very fast for you to see. This is the actual speed of how I purl. And that's a purl row, left to right. I'm going to knit another row, and I want to explain a little bit about the engineering of this knitting technique. I am not trying, when I stick my working needle in the stitch, I am not trying to wrap this yarn around that needle. That is unnecessary work. I'm simply trying to put the yarn in this V area. The V that's created by those two needles is where the yarn needs to be, so that when I move the working needle from the back to the front, it will shuttle and carry the yarn through the loop automatically. So you do not have to pull a loop through this stitch, and you do not have to wrap the yarn around this needle. You simply need to make sure that the yarn is securely in the V. So by sticking it in that stitch, bringing it over the top of that yarn, it's inside the V. It can be anywhere inside the V. The tendency is for it to move toward the center where the needles meet, and then when you move the working needle from the back to the front, it will pull the stitch through. So you do not have to be exact about this. Just put the needle over the yarn and bring it to the front. Over the yarn and bring it to the front. Over the yarn, bring it to the front. Over the yarn, etc. It's very fluid. And your hands never leave the needles. So it's fast. Let's do another purl row. Again, there's a little bit more moving of your index finger in purling because you have to get the yarn where you need it to be. But again, I don't have to wrap it around the needle. I'm simply shuttling it in between the V. So it's going in the V and then down toward the front again. And the working needle moves from front to back. Front to back. Front to back. And so I'm really thinking about front to back. I'm not thinking about, oh, will the yarn go through that stitch? I know it will. Because when I move that needle, that working needle from front to back, it automatically pulls that yarn through. The needles are doing the work. Another knit row. This is my first time doing a tutorial, so if my hands aren't where they need to be, I'm sorry. We'll make sure this gets edited, hopefully, so that you can see what I'm doing. This is knitting, back to front. The needle goes from the back to the front. That's all I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about the yarn really at all. I'm thinking the needle goes from back to front. And when I'm purling, I'm thinking the needle goes from front to back. Let's do another purl row. That first stitch is always so tricky. Okay. Front to back, front to back, front to back, front to back, and so forth. I'm just going to go ahead and knit left to right a couple more rows so you can watch this and see. It really is speedy. I have had people ask me, what are you doing? Okay, get it centered in the camera here a little bit better. Purling front to back. Now the only other thing I'll add about this technique, since you are knitting left to right, your decreases will be reversed. So whenever you see a slip slip knit, you'll do a knit two together, and whenever you see a knit two together in your pattern, you'll do a slip slip knit. Because the process of knitting two together when you're working left to right will make, if I knit two together here, that makes the decrease slant to the left. It slants that way. And if I do a slip slip knit, and the way I do a slip slip knit is, you know, a way several people have uninvented doing this is into the front of the first stitch, into the back of the second stitch, and knit them together. And that makes what is a slip slip knit, except the bottom stitch is twisted, which the stitch underneath is twisted. And if you care about that, if you don't want that stitch twisted, then you'll do slip, slip, and knit them together. And then that stitch isn't twisted. But I find that doing it the other way, where you just knit into the front of the first stitch and the back of the second stitch and knit them together all at once, is a lot faster. All right, let's do 2 more rows on fewer stitches because I did 3 decreases there. Let's get that first stitch taken care of. All right, 1 more row. So when I knit lace, for instance, I look at the chart and just read it left to right, as I would read anything. And reading it left to right, you can see in the chart, in the lace chart, I'm sorry I don't have a lace chart in front of me, but you can see in the lace chart where it shows you a decrease, and it'll show you a slanted line for the decrease. And so then I just do whichever way the chart says to slant the decrease. So if it says slant it to the left, then I do a knit two together. If it says slant it to the right, then I do a slip slip knit. But it is the opposite of what you would do in a written pattern. So if you just have a written pattern for that lace and it says knit two together, I have to know that I have to do a slip slip knit for that. I always knit from charts though, so if it's just written patterns, I just don't make it. I just don't do it. All right, I hope that's helpful and satisfies your curiosity about what knitting left to right is about. I do suggest that you search the rest of YouTube for other examples of people doing left-handed continental knitting, because I think seeing different people do it different ways, something might click with you that doesn't click watching me do it. And it's helpful to see different people do it different ways, so that what works for you, you get to see what works for you. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. It's a new adventure for me to be showing you my knitting. I know I need a manicure, but I just wanted to show you guys, because I had a request, how it is that I knit. And I do, I'm kind of speedy about it. Like I said, I've had comments as people walk by and see me knitting going, how are you doing that? And it's just the way my brain works. So brain and fingers and needles together, working that way. And yeah, it's a little weird, but it's how I knit. And I love knitting, as you probably know. I'm going to read from Ann Budd's Getting Started Knitting Socks. And this is a perfect example of the beauty and power of finding that introduction to a knitting pattern book. And this, as I say, this is just a introductory book to sock knitting, mostly just very illustrated, lots of diagrams and instructions. So you wouldn't think necessarily to go and read the introduction to this book. But I'm going to read it to you now because I think it's a beautiful piece of writing. This is by Ann Budd, and this is the introduction to Getting Started Knitting Socks. I've developed a relationship with hand-knitted socks that's bordering on a love affair. From the moment I slip on my socks in the morning to the moment I take them off at night, my legs are secretly being hugged, my heels gently cupped, and my feet caressed. While no one is looking, my socks embrace and cushion every step I take. In return, they only ask not be put in the dryer. Since I was given my first pair of hand-knitted socks about 10 years ago, I've gradually forsaken all commercially manufactured substitutes. My feet and I are very happy. So why are so many knitters hesitant to knit socks? Do they see folly in knitting something that no one sees, or worse, something that's bound to wear out? Do they worry that socks are too complicated to knit, all those pointy needles and tricky maneuvers? I suspect it's a little bit of each. But I also suspect that it's because they haven't experienced the pleasures of hand-knitted socks firsthand. Put on a pair of hand-knitted socks and any excuse is trivial. I'm now evangelistic in my desire to bring the same pleasure to all knitters and their friends. Sure, there are a number of techniques used in sock knitting that don't arise in other projects. Double-pointed needles, short rows, picking up stitches, and the dreaded Kitchener stitch. But when approached one at a time, none of these techniques is any more difficult than learning the basic knit and purl stitches. If you can knit and purl, you can knit your own socks. Follow the clear steps, photographs, and illustrations in this book, and you'll wonder why you waited so long. Before you know it, you'll start your own love affair. That is the introduction to Getting Started Knitting Socks by Ann Budd. Go and find your knitting pattern books and take a look at the introduction. Sometimes you'll find some really lovely writing in there. And I hope this episode was fun for you. And I will see you in 2 weeks. I have decided that on weeks where my husband and I are on Bob Seska, which the 3rd of September we will be, is the day that I'll take off and not do a knitting podcast. So I will see you in 2 weeks on, I believe that's the 10th of September. Happy Labor Day, and I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.
On Wednesdays at 7, sharp as can be, blue gals calling, come knit with me.